the busiest weeks of the 2020 high school football season is now behind us, and now we turn our attention to what could possibly be the most exciting week of the 2020 high school football season. Welcome in, everybody. I'm Alec Etheridge, the managing editor here at the Shelby County Reporter, and last week was an exhausting one to say the least. 11 total games that we had take place featuring Shelby County teams, but a lot of excitement. And we're coming to you here from where one of the most exciting games in the state took place last week, aside from the Hillcrest-Wetumpka game, which if you haven't seen the video of that, go look that up. That was a crazy matchup that finished with a bunch of laterals and Hillcrest-Tuscaloosa winning that matchup. So the other exciting matchup last Friday night, though, did take place right here at Herbmont Park, and that's where we're coming to you this week as we have a big matchup again for the Eagles taking on the number 3 Hoover Buccaneers, a matchup of undefeateds in Class 7A Region 3, and that's just one of the many storylines going into this week. That's going to be our co-game of the week alongside Thompson, Hewitt, Trussville, the number 1 and number 2 teams battling there in Class 7A Region 3, also sitting undefeated at 4-0 overall and 2-0 in region play. That game, for the second time in 3 years, is going to be televised nationally, this time around on ESPNU. So a lot of excitement to build up as far as that matchup between the Huskies and the Warriors, the one that's going to take place out at the Met between the Hoover Buccaneers and Oak Mountain Eagles, and then plenty more happening this Friday night as well. A lot of excitement to touch on. We're going to do all that during this week's show. We're also going to give you a look back at last week, kind of recap everything that happened before we talk about all those games. And then at the end, as we always do, our SCR Stars of the Week. And in an exciting, busy night of region play last week, there were a ton of stars that stood out. But first thing we need to talk about, there's a few teams not playing this week on bye, as we've got the Calera Eagles and the Chelsea Hornets both on bye this week. And you look at what both were able to do last week. Chelsea, another disappointing loss as they lose to Homewood, and the offense struggled to get going again. So Chelsea now sitting in a difficult situation with back-to-back region losses to open region play. But a team that's going to continue to fight. There's a physical defensive team that's continuing to grow offensively. But the Calera Eagles, this is a team that came in so young this season, but that youth had experience. These were guys as freshmen and sophomores last year that played a lot of football, and now they're back this year as sophomores and juniors, and still a few freshmen on that team that have sprinkled in as starters this season. The Calera Eagles last week pick up a victory against the Chilton County Tigers, and that's a huge win for them as they win that game 24-21 against the Tigers. And you look at what Calera had done before that, the last 3 seasons, including this season, in that region, in Class 6A in general, they had won just 1 region game. And then this year, already just through 2 region games, and they've already got a region win under their belt. So a strong start for the Calera Eagles with that forfeit win against Jackson Nolan. They now sit at 2-2 overall and 1-1 in region play. And this is a young team behind Tyler Nelson who's going to continue to get better there at the quarterback position. They've got so much talent and athleticism on that roster that watch out for the Calera Eagles as we've moved forward. So a lot to look back on between those two teams. A lot of hype now building up and confidence for a young Calera team as they continue to grow moving forward. The Evangel Lightning, they're also off to a 3-0 start. That defense just continues to shine each week. This week they had a game scheduled. It's been canceled right now with North River Christian. They'll be looking to find somebody to play Friday night, but if not, they'll have another bye week coming up this week. So a lot that happened last week, obviously. But this week is going to be one of the best slates of games that we have all season. We're going to dive in. We're going to talk about all of the action. We're going to start with our top 2 battle between the Thompson Warriors and Hewitt-Trussville Huskies. As we mentioned at the top of the show, this is a game that 2 years ago was also nationally televised, so the second time in 3 years that they will be on one of the ESPN channels. 2 years ago, you look at what happened at a game that was on ESPN2, and Thompson fell behind 28-0 to Hewitt-Trussville, but then just destroyed them the rest of the way. They go on to win that game 63-49, and that was a strong offensive performance from Talia Tungavailoa and company there at Thompson a few years ago. And now you come back this year and you look at what both of these teams are doing offensively, and you have to be excited yet again about the possibility of seeing something like we've seen each of the last 2 years. And that brings me to what happened last year in this game. Hewitt-Trussville obviously losing on national television after having a 28-0 lead. They wanted redemption last year, and they got it. 35-29, They were the only team to beat Thompson on their state championship run last year, as the Warriors were the Class 7A state champs a season ago. And so now you have a Thompson team coming in this year looking for redemption from that loss last year. Their only loss of the season. Felt like they should have won that game, made a ton of mistakes that kept them from doing so, had the ball with a chance to win and turned it over late in that contest. And you've also got a Hewitt-Trussville team, despite winning last year, they lost 2 years ago on national television. They want to bounce back, show that audience on TV that they can beat Thompson, the defending 7A state champs. So there's a lot on the line for both of these teams. I think both are easily playoff contenders this year, and you look at what they've been able to do so far, and it starts with the offensive side of the ball. You look at Thompson last week coming off a 48-35 victory against Spain Park. The Warriors have scored 39 or more in all 4 games this season, and they've scored 48 or more in 3 of their 4 games this season. So an offense that just continues to roll despite losing another quarterback that threw for 3,000-plus yards last year in Sawyer Pate. Connor Harrell's come in as a junior starter this year and has done so much, and he's very dynamic. He can use his legs or his arm. His arm really flourished last week against Spain Park, though, with more than 400 passing yards and yet another performance, his 3rd of the season, with 5 touchdowns. He's had 3 games with 5 touchdowns and another with 2 touchdowns. So a strong showing so far from Harrell, as he has 1,200-plus yards on the season so far, and got an offer from the University of Tennessee the day after that win against Spain Park on Friday night. But you look at what Hewitt-Trussville's been able to do on the offensive side of the football, and the Huskies have been doing just fine over there as well. They've scored 44 or more in their 3 head-to-head battles this year. They've played 3 on the field, and then they also got a forfeit win as well. So Hewitt-Trussville's offense rolling along just as well as Thompson's is. And you look at the dynamic of both of these teams. They both just have so much talent on that side of the ball. Looking at Hewitt-Trussville, they've got Armani Goodwin, an Auburn commit, who's one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in the state this season. They've got a receiver in Omari Kelly, who has stepped up and been big through the first couple of games this year. He's still just a junior there for the Huskies, so a lot of excitement surrounding this Thompson offense this Hewitt-Trussville offense this year, and that's what's led to 44 or more points in their first 3 games. But look at what Thompson's been able to do as well, and look at the weapons that they have. They may have 1 or 2 more weapons than what you've got there at Hewitt-Trussville. You look at Harrell at quarterback, obviously, but the weapons around him is what makes this offense so dynamic and exciting. You look at Trey Roberson and J.B. Mitchell out wide as receivers that can either catch it and make a play after the catch, as we saw several times last week from these receivers against Spain Park, or they can go downfield, jump up, and catch the ball and bring it down as well. And then you've got guys like Sam Reynolds and Ryan Pepins, who are just major speedsters. If they get the ball with any kind of space, they're going to take it to the house. And last week we saw Reynolds kind of step into a running back role, a position head coach Mark Freeman said that he's gotten more comfortable with. He used to play that position back in the day, and now they work him really every week there a little bit at practice, just in case something happens to running backs Jarrett Crockett and Brandon Franklin. And those two have been studs all year, but last week they were without Crockett going into the game, and then Franklin got hurt early in the first half after racking up 95 yards in the first quarter on the ground. So Reynolds came in, however, and just dominated all night, both receiving and in the run game. Had 200 all-purpose yards in that matchup. So they've got all those weapons on the offensive side of the ball, and that's what's going to make this matchup so exciting. You've got 2 offenses with so much potential to put up a ton of points. But that said, the defense is where this game is going to be won. And we've talked a little bit about the inconsistency at Thompson so far this season. Gave up 34 in an opening win against the defending 6A state champs in Oxford, and then last week obviously giving up 35 to Spain Park, and that was a Spain Park team that Hewitt-Trussville held to just 13 points. And that brings me to my next point. Thompson came into the season with what was supposed to be the best defense in the state, arguably one of the best defenses we've ever seen in state history. They have a Division I caliber player, SEC caliber player, that could be playing at Alabama, Auburn, Florida, anywhere in the SEC at each level of the defense. You look at Jeremiah Alexander at linebacker. You look at Peter Woods up front at the defensive line, and then Tony Mitchell back in the secondary, and that's just those guys. There are several other players that could easily be Division I players as well. Jax Van Zant, one that comes off the top of my head, a linebacker there that's been a leader and had a strong game last week against Main Park. But the inconsistency's been there early. This is a game where Thompson's going to have it clicking on the defensive side of the ball, and I think that motivation is going to be there. We'll touch on that here in just a second. But you look at what Hewitt-Trussville has been able to do so far this season defensively. They've given up 19 or less in every game, 19, 13, and 18 in their 3 head-to-head matchups. So a defense that's playing some great football early in the season, matched with that offense, that's a scary sign for Hewitt-Trussville. But they haven't been challenged like they're going to be challenged against this Thompson offense that you look this way, there's a guy to throw to. You look this way, there's a guy to throw to. And you've got 2 great guys in the backfield as well. If they're healthy, that could be the difference. If Jarrett Crockett and Brandon Franklin are not healthy, then we may see a little bit of struggle early for Thompson to kind of get into a rhythm just because they won't be able to run the ball a lot to set up the pass game. So we'll see how that kind of plays out on the field. But all in all, you've got a Thompson team that's motivated from that loss last year, the only loss on their record a season ago in a tight 6-point game. They're going to be motivated overall as a team, but this defense I think is going to be a little bit extra motivated, not only because they gave up 35 to Hewitt-Trussville last year, but also because of what we've seen inconsistency-wise so far this season. Gave up 7 points the 2 games before taking on Spain Park where they gave up 35, but against their 2 best opponents, they've given up now 34 and 35 points. So against this difficult Hewitt-Trussville offense, this is a tall task to ask to have your best game of the season defensively, but I think you're going to see that from the Warriors as they come out to prove a point on that side of the ball. Nonetheless, a top 2 battle on ESPNU. High school football season is officially in full swing, and we're a week away from the midway point. That's a crazy thing to think about when we didn't even know if we would have a season this year, and this game could be one of the best of the year, so it's going to be an exciting one there at Hewitt-Trussville this Friday night. I look forward to seeing you all there from that game as we see these two top teams battle on ESPNU. It was only fitting that we did our show here from Herbmont Park, the always beautiful Herbmont Stadium here at Oak Mountain, as the Eagles get off to their first 4-0 start in school history last Friday night, and it came in exciting fashion. This is a team in Oak Mountain that was down 28-20 with about 4 minutes left to play against Vestavia Hills, a team they've struggled with historically here at Oak Mountain. But the Eagles, they didn't panic. This is a team coming into the year that wasn't scared of the challenges that lied ahead with difficult opponents, and they showed why this past Friday night as Evan Smith scored 2 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion in the final 2:13 of that game to lead Oak Mountain to a comeback victory. 35-28, they beat Vestavia, and that leads them to that first 4-0 start in school history. Now sitting at 2-0 in region play as well. And this Friday, it's going to get even more exciting. They take on the always difficult Hoover Buccaneers, sitting at 4-0 and 2-0 as well here in Class 7A Region 3. And this is a team Oak Mountain has struggled with. All-time 0-17 against Hoover. So they made history last week with that first 4-0 start in school history. Can they do it again this week and pick up that first ever win against the Hoover Buccaneers? That's a tall task to ask for, but if any team's had the potential to do it, I think it's this team. You look at those 17 matchups all time, and the 3 seasons that Oak Mountain's been the closest, they've only had 3 games in that span that have been decided by 14 or less, and those 3 teams were the 3 best teams so far that Oak Mountain has had, and now you've got a 4th team that sits right there in that category, possibly the best that they've ever had here at Oak Mountain. And those games all were decided by very close margins. You look at 17-14 in 2015, 21-14 in 2011, and 21-18 in 2007. So all those games decided by 7 points or less, and 2 of them by 3 points. So this is a matchup that I think is going to be very similar to that. I think you've got an Oak Mountain team that's the best they've been in a while. You've got a Hoover team that's not necessarily the best they've ever been, but they're always going to be a talented football team and still a top 3 team in the state right now, sitting undefeated and coming off a big win a week ago. So this Hoover team is going to be a tough one to beat if you're Oak Mountain, but at the same time, the most confident and exciting that this Oak Mountain team has been in a while. So you look at this matchup head-to-head, and you've got to lean on Oak Mountain's defense to continue to make plays to have a chance. You look at what they did last week against Vestavia. They blocked a field goal to end the first half. That ended up leading to the win in the second half technically because that kept 3 points off the board. And then Dean Knoll forced a fumble late in that game as well. to give Oak Mountain the ball back after a turnover on downs that looked like it had doomed them at that point in the game. And so far this year, this defense has forced 9 turnovers on the season, at least 1 in every game. And they've forced 3 in 2 of their 4 games so far, and 2 in the other one, and then 1 last week as well. So this is an Oak Mountain defense that's arguably one of the best it's ever had here for the Eagles, and they're just playing so good. Now, on the other side of that, the offense has had the fumble issue, and this is a team that loves to run the ball on the option attack, but they fumbled the ball lost a fumble at least once in every game so far this season, and that's something that you obviously can't do. They fumbled the ball a total of 8 times this year, and against a Hoover team, they're going to be ready for that. They're going to fall on those footballs, and that's going to give Hoover some extra possessions. But if you're the Oak Mountain defense, you can force those turnovers and get after the Hoover offense. That's obviously going to help you tremendously in this matchup. It not only takes Hoover's offense off the field, takes your defense off the field for more rest against the most physical opponent you've probably seen to this point in the season, but it also gets that offense back on the field for Oak Mountain that is so difficult to prepare for, not only with the option attack, but when this team is as talented as they are, when they have so much returning ability on that side of the ball that knows how to run this option attack with an offensive line that's physical and solid, that wears down a defense tremendously throughout games. And that's something that if that defense can give the Oak Mountain offense some extra possessions in this game, that could wear down Hoover's defense. And I know Hoover's known for having depth, known for being one of the more physical and well-conditioned teams in the state. But that's something that's always been tough for teams to prepare for when they take on Oak Mountain, much less an experienced Oak Mountain team that's off to their best start in school history with so much talent on that offensive side of the ball. So you pair that together, and you've got a strong chance for the Eagles to pull off that first upset here against the Buccaneers in school history. You look at what both of these teams have done early in the season. Oak Mountain sitting with 34.8 points per game on the offensive side, giving up 18.5 points per game defensively. Hoover just slightly better on both sides, scoring 42.3 points per game and giving up 14 points per game. But you look head-to-head against Vestavia Hills, Hoover ended up winning 24-21, Oak Mountain 35-28. Now, Vestavia had to come back to make that a close game against Hoover, whereas Oak Mountain had to come back just to win against Vestavia. But that shows me that they competed with Vestavia. Hoover competed with Vestavia. I think you're going to see these two teams fairly close, the closest they've been since at least 2015 in that 3-point game. I think this is a game that's decided by 14 or less, which gives Oak Mountain a chance, and that's all you can ask for. The difference is going to come with how many turnovers they're able to force. But nonetheless, an exciting time for the Oak Mountain Eagles. Off to their best start in school history. They do still have their 3 toughest games, those top 3 teams with Hewitt, Trussville, Hoover, and Thompson still ahead. But I think the key is going to come against Spain Park later on this year, as that game, in my opinion, might decide who is the 4th seed out of this region. But Oak Mountain can take a step toward not just a top 4 seed. They can take a step toward a top 2 or 3 seed with a win and an upset against Hoover on Friday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see how that one unfolds as the Eagles look to make history for the 2nd week in a row. There's going to be no way around it. This is a huge game for any sort of playoff hopes between Gaston City and Spain Park. You look at what both of these teams were able to do early in the season, look solid through the first 2 weeks, get off to 2-0 starts. Gaston City was playing some great football, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and then they lose 2 games in a row through a pretty difficult stretch. And then you look at what Spain Park had to do after their 2-0 start with a win against Huntsville and Briarwood. They get the top 2 teams in the state. The first week of region play, they lose to Hewitt Trussville in dominant fashion. 3 turnovers early in that game cost them, and they never really had a chance from there. And then last week, they fought hard against Thompson, but taking on the number 1 Warriors, they were just a little bit too much on the offensive side. Built around a 14-point lead and kept that throughout the contest. Spain Park jumped up early 7-0, but Thompson ramped it back up, came back, and really just played better football the rest of the way. And you saw what Spain Park was able to do in that game, and that's what gives me faith in them moving forward. After the game, head coach Sean Rainey said that he told his team they were a playoff team this year going into that matchup, and he believed it even more after that loss to Thompson. And it's easy to see why. If you look at what that offense was able to do, one of their best performances of the year. Obviously, the 52 that they put up against Huntsville in that win was the best that they played so far on both sides of the ball. But against this very good and physical Thompson defense, Spain Park last week was able to get a 400-plus yard performance from Bennett Meredith at quarterback, a guy that continues to grow each week. And you look at the weapons that they have around them on that side of the ball. That's what makes the Spain Park team so dangerous each and every week of the year, and that's what challenged Thompson last week. And with their defense struggling is because you look at guys like Cooper Kelly, Jalen Ward, and a few others. You've got Justin Pegues at running back and several others that are starting to step up too, David Moultrie and a couple other guys. That's what's going to make this team dangerous down the stretch if they can continue to get that confidence on the offensive side of the football. And I think the benefit that Spain Park has in this game is that they've shown growth throughout the first 4 weeks of the season in different ways and at different times. It hasn't been consistent growth, but they've shown that growth, and they showed it the last couple of weeks against the top 2 teams in the state. And I think that's the benefit they have going into this matchup. They've got the 2 best teams on their schedule behind them now. The first week of region play didn't look great against Hewitt Trussville. Early turnovers and struggles, they just couldn't find that consistency. Last week looked a little bit better. They started off strong, then they went through a little bit of a lull, but then they found a rhythm again there in the second half. And this is a team, if you really have watched this team closely, and I've seen them in person a couple of times now, once they have that first positive play of a drive, if they start a drive with a 3-4 yard gain, then they're off and rolling. They're going to score. The problem that they have is when they get behind the 8 ball, they have a penalty early. They go for a tackle for a loss early in the drive. But anytime, if they get 1 first down on a drive, it's most likely going to sustain that drive, and they're going to go on to at least have a chance to score in the red zone. So a Spain Park team that offense continues to see that positive momentum boost. I think they're going to get better and better each week. They should be the better team this week. It's up to them to be able to bounce back from 2 straight losses. They need to know that they have the talent there, and they just need to stay within their own heads and be smart about everything. This is a team that does have the talent. The defense is getting better each and every week and is obviously going to have to after giving up 40-plus in their last 2 games. But that said, this offense should be ready to roll against Gaston City. I expect Spain Park to bounce back and pick up that first region win. If they truly are a playoff team, this is a game they do win. It's hard to believe that you've got 2 undefeated matchups in Class 7A Region 3, the most difficult region in the state, yet there could still possibly be a more exciting game taking place this Friday night, and that could be a possibility in this matchup between the Pelham Panthers and the Helena Huskies. You look at what these 2 teams have done so far this season, a little bit of inconsistency for both sides, but you also look back to what happened a season ago where the Helena Huskies, a 62-20 win against Pelham. That marked the first time that they had beaten the Panthers in school history. So this is a rivalry last year that there was a lot going on going into that game, a lot of excitement surrounding that. It got even more exciting as kickoff approached, and this is a rivalry that just continues to get stronger and stronger every year. And I know there's a lot of friends on both sides, but I know they also want to get out there and get after each other, and this is a game that they don't live down. If they lose this one, it hurts for a while. So both of these teams want to win this football game. Now Helena's got a new sense of belief, a rejuvenation in the rivalry after picking up that first win against the Panthers in school history. But you've got a Pelham team that's going to be out for redemption, and I know they've been ready for this game and been talking about it and have this game circled on the schedule. So they're going to give Helena their best shot, and you know the Huskies are going to be prepared for that as well. But you look at what's happened early in the season so far, and Pelham they're off to their best start since 2013, sitting at 3-1. And last week, I said going into that matchup with Stanhope Elmore that it could possibly be their most difficult matchup of the season. And Pelham honestly made it look easy. They struggled a little bit at times, but that was after they had built a 14-point lead. And they go on to win that game 35-25. And really it was never in doubt that they were going to win. And it continues to be because of Dylan Peterson and Gabe Gamble, particularly Peterson, who went for about $180 in that game. The 3rd week in a row he's gone for almost 150-plus each of the last 3 weeks. And then you look at what Gamble was able to do, joining him in the backfield. He was able to go over 100 yards for the second time this season through 4 games. So, I mean, that's a strong 1-2 punch there when you've got guys, 2 guys that can easily go over 100 yards every game, and especially if they're both doing it in the same game, and that's why Stanhope Elmore struggled. They couldn't contain that run game, and that's something Helena's going to have to focus on. Pelham quarterback Will Langford's getting better each and every week. He's able to use his legs as well, and he's got weapons around him to throw the football to. Darius Copeland, Chase Christian, Walker Lyles, speedy guys that he can get the ball to quickly, and they can make plays, but they're also going to help in the run game as well. So there's just so many different ways that Pelham can spread the ball around and get it in space with a lot of speedy and strong athletes. So Helena's going to have to be prepared for that, but Pelham's also going to have to be prepared for the Helena rushing attack. You look at what the Huskies bring back this season. Marquise Johnson, a 1,400-plus yard running back last year for Helena, led the county in that category. And this year you've got Kobe Hughes joining him, and he's been just as good, if not better. And you look at what he was able to do last week against Wetumpka. This is a Helena team that had struggled with consistency so far this season. That said, they're still 6 points or less, 2 losses by 6 points or less away from being 4-0 on the season. And last week, a huge bounce-back win from 2 straight losses as they take down Wetumpka in dominant fashion a week ago. And it was because of what Hughes was able to do on the ground with his 5 touchdown runs. And that was just a strong performance. Had about 80 yards on the ground, 5 touchdowns, led Helena to a dominant win there on the road in that matchup with Benjamin Russell a week ago. So Helena gets some confidence back in that game against Russell and looks to be heading in the right direction. And even in those 2 losses a couple weeks ago to Chelsea and Wetumpka, you had a Helena team that put together strong second-half comebacks and almost won both of those games. They've been a second-half team this year, but last week in that win against Benjamin Russell, there was a lightning delay early in that game. It didn't end until 11 o'clock because of that. But that lightning delay early kind of made it feel like the second half came a little bit earlier after that delay was completed, and that's when Helena really clicked and turned things up. So if they can kind of have that mindset going into the game, your pregame inside the locker room is really halftime, and they come out in the first 2 quarters and play like it's the second half, then you're going to have a Helena team that's ready to roll and is going to challenge Pelham on Friday night. That said, the Panthers have been a little bit more consistent so far this season. After that 3-1 start, their only loss, a 28-21 loss to Oak Mountain, a game that they had a chance to tie late there against the undefeated Eagles. So Pelham's just been a little bit more consistent. I've seen a lot of consistency between both Gamble and Peterson, and I know the weapons that they have all over the field offensively. That combined with the motivation to redeem last year's loss, I think Pelham's got a strong shot to win this game, but Helena showed me a lot last week that makes me think they also have a chance. So this is a rivalry matchup that you just don't want to miss. It's going to be a lot of fun between the Huskies and the Panthers. We didn't expect the Briarwood Lions to struggle last week, and they did not. They pick up a halftime lead of 43-0 against Woodlawn, going to win that game 43-0. Second half was easy as they were able to just run the ball and finish off that game and put in some of their backups as well to get some extra reps for some of those young guys. But look at the last 2 weeks for Briarwood, a team that has outscored their last 2 opponents 63-3. And that's a testament to the defensive side of the football, not playing the strongest of opponents. Chelsea was more of a challenge and should have been more of a challenge there against Briarwood. And early in that game, that was a tight defensive battle before Briarwood's offense got clicking. Last week, they had the offense clicking from the start and the defense clicking from the start, and that's what makes this team so dangerous. A team that's giving up 11 points per game so far on the defensive side of the football. It's been a clinic to watch of this Briarwood defense, and that's expected of defense. It's always been good. And now you've got Matthew Forrester, the former defensive coordinator, state's all-time leader linebacker in tackles, and now he's leading this team as the head coach, and the defense has followed suit. It's a defense that continues to play tremendous football each and every year, and that's continued so far this year. The first 2 games they gave up right around 21 points, but those were against good 6A opponents as they've jumped back in to the 6A ranks this year. Actually, the second game against the 7A opponent in Spain Park, a game they lost 21-14 after a 14-0 lead in that game. And then you look at the week before against Fort Payne, they win that game and gave up 20 points. So 21 or less in every game so far this season, and now they get a Huffman team that struggled offensively last week. Now, this is a very good Huffman team. They sit at 3-1. They're also a former 7A team. They took on number 1 Mountain Brook last week, so they're tested as far as taking on a challenging defense. You look at what they did in that game. It was 7-7 at the halftime break, a lot like what I would expect this game to be on Friday night between Briarwood and Huffman. But then Mountain Brook found something there in the second half with 21 unanswered and won that game 28-7. So that's going to be the key. I think Briarwood's defense is going to continue to play well in this game. They should play well in every game. It's the offense that's going to have to make the difference. If you look at Briarwood's season so far, they've been a little inconsistent on that side of the ball. Christopher Vizina, the quarterback, still just a sophomore there for the Lions, has upped his game a little bit. I mean, he's making some very good throws, but the receivers are dropping a lot of them. It's tough for them to get open at times. If they can continue to get better each week, and I've seen it the past couple of weeks from Brooks Donnelly as well as Eli Stedman, those two guys have really stepped up and started making some plays in the passing game. So if those two can be two guys on each side of the quarterback that can make plays at receiver, you've got Luke Rebels at running back. You've got a trustworthy quarterback that's going to get better each week. You add that offense getting as exciting as they have the potential to be and pair it with what this defense can do, that makes this team all the more dangerous, and that's what makes them a competitor for against Mountain Brook for the top spot in this region, the number 1 team in Class 6A this season. So that's going to be the key for Briarwood, and it's going to start this week. If they want to challenge Mountain Brook, this is the game where you have to show that. They need to come out and show that their offense can handle the pressure of this game against a very good Huffman football team, and the defense has to continue to do what it's been able to do. Huffman's going to be a challenge. There's going to be nothing easy about it, but I do think Briarwood's defense keeps them around in this game, and we'll see the offense finally kind of start to turn the page with some of those playmakers getting more and more confidence each week so far this season. There's no two ways about it. Last week was disappointing for the Shelby County Wildcats. They lose a game to Selma 12-10 that prevented the Wildcats from getting off to their first 3-0 start since the 2008 season. So through the first 3 weeks so far, we've seen the defense really step up. And coming into the season, the expectation was for the defense to show a little bit of improvement and for the offense to continue to be as successful as it has been. And that was what was going to be was going to help this team have the success that we expected. I predicted, obviously, them to make the playoffs for the first time since 2009, possibly finish as one of the top 2 teams in the region this season as well. Maybe that's shifted to being a 3 or 4 seed. I do still think they make the playoffs, but the offense has underperformed so far. There's no way around that. They have got to get better on that side of the ball while the defense has to continue to play as strong as they've been able to play so far this season. I do think Selma's a little better than I thought they were, so not a terrible loss, but you just with the offense they have, that game was 12-10 at halftime. You expect that Shelby County run game to really turn things up, take advantage of a tired defense in the second half, and they just couldn't capitalize on different situations as well as making mistakes. That cost them a chance to win that game and get off to that first 3-0 start since 2008, and now it doesn't get any easier. This week they take on the Demopolis Tigers, a team sitting at 4-0 overall on the season, already 2-0 in region play. And this is a game, if Shelby County can win it, they're right back in the hunt for winning the region championship as well as a top 2 spot in that region. So a very big week for the Wildcats to try to bounce back. Now, it's going to be difficult. This is a Demopolis defense that's giving up right now 14.5 points per game defensively. With the struggles we've seen from Shelby County's offense, it's a tall task to ask the offense to go out and fix everything in a week and put up their best performance against this Demopolis defense, which is going to be the toughest team they face the rest of the way. They're also scoring 32.3 points per game. Now, both of these teams played very similar football against Sipsey Valley. Shelby County won that game 35-0. Demopolis last week beat them 41-8. So very similar performances against Sipsey Valley. Don't know what that shows going into this game, but I do think that you've got a Shelby County defense that's going to keep you in a lot of football games this year the way that they're playing on that side of the ball. So we'll see if they're able to handle that again this week against their toughest opponent of the season in Demopolis. If Shelby County can perform well in this game, and even if they don't, the schedule the rest of the way sets up nicely for them. They should have a chance to win the rest of their football games, at least be in every game. But I do think every region game down the road after this one, Shelby County should have a strong chance to win, if not win them all, moving forward. So an important week, because if they win this one, they're easily in the hunt still for a region title or a top 2 seed moving forward. But you got to show some confidence and some improvement on the offensive side of the ball. Defense, keep doing what you're doing. If that offense improves and that defense stays the same, could be a dangerous team the rest of the way. We've got one more game to talk about before we get to our SCR Stars of the Week, and it's going to be the Vincent Yellow Jackets. And what an impressive start to the season after they had to forfeit their first 3 games. They set at 0-3 overall and 0-1 in region play after forfeiting the region opener against Ramburn 2 weeks ago. But they stepped on the field last week against a Horseshoe Bend team that was playing tremendous defense and giving up 15 points or less in their first 3 games of the season defensively. And Vincent comes out, picks up a 39-32 victory. So a team that in Horseshoe Bend that was struggling offensively and was able to put up a lot of points against that Vincent defense. But the Vincent offense comes out against that tough, physical Horseshoe Bend defense, and Vincent puts up 39 points and hadn't played a game yet this season. It was impressive to see what they were able to do without any experience, whereas Horseshoe Bend had played 3 games and had tape and everything they needed to get ready for that matchup. But Vincent was fresh. They were ready to go. They were excited and pumped up to be playing football, and that's something that could continue into this week. Obviously now 1-1 in region play, which is all that matters. The 1-3 overall record, will put that out the window right now, because on the field head-to-head, they are 1-0 on the season. And they get a Fayetteville team this week that is struggling so far this season. Fayetteville, a team that is 1-2. They've yet to score more than 16 points and are coming off a 30-4 loss to Lynette. They also lost to a 1A Woodland team that beat them by scoring 20 points. In the next 2 weeks, Woodland only put up 6 points in each of those 2 games. So this is a Fayetteville team that has struggled early in the season. Vincent gained so much confidence last week. I think if Vincent's offense comes out, performs the way that they did last week, it's going to be difficult to see Fayetteville keeping up because of the offensive struggles they've had. Now, Vincent's defense obviously going to have to show some improvement. A lot of guys playing both ways, so their defense gets a little tired out at times. But if the offense plays the way they did last week, I trust them to make some plays late in the game to win this football game. They could easily be off to a 2-0 head-to-head start, improve their record to 2-3 overall and 2-1 in region play. And if they can get to 2-1 in region play, the schedule's difficult. They do face some strong opponents down the road, but this is a team that could easily get back to the playoffs if they continue to play like they did last week moving forward. After such a busy week, there are so many stars that stood out this past Friday night. We're going to break them all down right now in our SCR Stars of the Week segment, our top players and performers from the week that was. And it was exciting right here behind me at Herbmont Park, as the Oak Mountain Eagles scored 2 touchdowns late in a comeback victory to win 35-28. And a big reason why that ground game between Evan Smith and Judah Tate continued to roll along. You look at what Evan Smith did in that game. He finished the night with 18 carries for 146 yards from the quarterback position. Also had 2 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion in the final 2:13 of play. Trailing 28-20, scored the game-tying touchdown and technically the game-tying 2-point conversion after scoring the touchdown. And then later on, after getting the ball back, scored the game-winning touchdown with 12 seconds left. Also added 72 yards passing and had a total of 3 touchdowns on the night. His teammate Judah Tate, after being one of the best players in the state the week before with a strong rushing attack, didn't disappoint for the second week in a row. Tate finished the game with 26 carries for 145 yards and a touchdown there for the Eagles, as that run game is clicking each and every week right now. Such a tough dynamic to stop in the option attack. With that experience, they've got some other speedsters out there as well. Noah Young stepping up at receiver also. This is a dangerous Oak Mountain team with confidence going into that matchup with number 3 Hoover in a battle of undefeateds in Class 7A Region 3 Friday night. They continue to play that well offensively. It's going to be a very good performance again, and they'll have a chance to pull the upset. But the defense and special teams also playing well. A blocked field goal, Dean Knoll forcing a turnover. So many guys playing well on the defensive side of the football for Oak Mountain right now as well. If that combination is there, this is going to be a very good week for Oak Mountain, in my opinion, and they'll have a chance to upset the number 3 team. Also in Class 7A, the Thompson Warriors, Spain Park Jaguars put up more than 1,000 yards of total offense in that game. A lot of fun to watch between those two teams. You look at what Connor Harrell continues to do, the junior there at Thompson, had 406 passing yards, 19-30, with 3 touchdowns in that game. Just continues to be a dominant force this season. Only has 1 interception so far this season, and also added 58 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns on the ground in that game against Spain Park. So Connor Harrell right now, he has 3 games this season with 5 touchdowns. The other, he's got 2 touchdowns in, and just continues to roll along now. 1,200-plus yards on the season, and an offer from the University of Tennessee Saturday morning after that win, and 400-plus yard performance against the Jaguars. In addition to him, you look at what Sam Reynolds was able to do on that offense. 84 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns and a backup role after Brandon Franklin went down at the end of the first quarter. And then you look at the 111 yards receiving there with a touchdown on 3 receptions. Made a tremendous play after the catch where he made some guys miss and just sped to the end zone at one point. So a strong showing from Sam Reynolds, one of the best athletes in the state this season. And J.B. Mitchell didn't have a touchdown, but continues to just impress on the offensive side of the ball at receiver. Had 7 receptions, 160 yards there for that Thompson offense. And Brandon Franklin added in 95 yards rushing and 9 carries, the majority of which came in the first quarter before he was injured in that matchup. And Zach Johnson, this is a special story, lost his grandfather on Friday night. He also scored a touchdown for the Thompson Warriors, got to celebrate and pointed to the sky in what was a truly special moment. And we didn't realize that at the time, but after the game, that was posted on Twitter and was such a cool moment for him to get to share in that as the senior scored that touchdown there for Thompson in that game of 21 yards. So a special moment for him. You look at the defense for Thompson. Jackson Van Zant had a strong game there for the Warriors. Was the captain before the game, came out and was around the ball the entire night. If he steps up, continues to do so with the rest of that talent, this Thompson defense is going to continue to get better and kind of be what we expected them to be coming into the season. The opposite side in that game, Bennett Meredith continues to improve at quarterback for the Jags, had 304 yards and 3 touchdowns passing on 27 of 47 passing. As he continued to get confidence, there were times where he struggled to move the ball and there were some overthrows and some disappointing plays, but then there were times where he looked like he has the potential to possibly over the next 2 years become one of the best quarterbacks in the state, and we saw that with his 300-yard, 3-touchdown performance and almost led them to a chance to have the ball down, or they had Thompson pinned on their heels, threw an interception there late in that game down inside the 10-yard line, looking to make it a 6-point game there against Thompson in the final few minutes. So overall strong showing from Meredith, and he'll continue to get better in different situations throughout the game. Cooper Kelly, a big reason why, 6 receptions, 103 yards, and 2 touchdowns to lead the receiving corps there at Spain Park. So a team and an offense that continues to have the talent and will continue to get more and more confident under their junior quarterback moving forward. You can't hide this. Dylan Peterson continues to be a stud at Pelham, 180 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing this past Friday night in a huge win against Stanhope Elmore, arguably their toughest game on the schedule, and he came out and performed, as did teammate Gabe Gamble, who went over 100 yards for the second time this season with 110 rushing yards there for the Panthers. That duo is going to be tough for anybody to stop, and the Helena Huskies get the pleasure of trying to do so this Friday night in that rivalry matchup. And they were led by a strong performance from Kobe Hughes this past Friday night. Hughes, 5 touchdowns, about 80 yards on 12 carries. A strong showing from him as he just pummeled his way into the end zone, was automatic anytime they got near the end zone down there for Helena. He'll be a big key going into this rivalry matchup with Pelham on Friday night. The Calera Eagles continue to show growth and improvement with a young group of players. And on this past Friday night, they pick up a strong win against Chilton County. A big reason why, Tyler Nelson, able to do so much with both his legs and his arm, had 90 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns and finished 12 of 23 with 150 yards passing and a touchdown, coming off a performance of around 400 yards the week before in a comeback attempt against Pelham. They lost that game 49-41. Clear defense also showing some positive signs. The side of the ball that's really struggled late in games this year, they've gotten better in the second half, arguably, and that continued to be the case last week. You look at Fred Hurth, led the defense, had 7 total tackles, and forced a safety late in the fourth quarter that ended up being a big difference maker. You also had Wesley Head, who sealed it for an interception for the second straight game, and Kevin Holman, he had 8 total tackles in that game to lead the defense. That's a strong defensive showing from him, and that defense continues to show some improvement there for the Calera Eagles as they get better each and every week, really on both sides of the ball, and going to be a dangerous threat moving forward the rest of the way. Last player we'll talk about, Jamari Lawson there at Vincent, a guy that stepped in this year the coaching staff was excited about, has so much speed there for that Vincent offense. He had 115 yards and 3 touchdowns on 16 carries to lead the Yellow Jackets rushing attack and to lead that offense to 39 points in their season opener head-to-head matchup as they pick up the 39-32 win against Horseshoe Bend. So an exciting night of region play last week, a busy night, an exhausting night for not just me but all of the players and coaches around the county as well, as we did have 11 matchups. There were a ton of guys that stood out. I expect that to continue into what should be one of the more exciting weeks of the season this Friday. A season that we thought might not happen has turned into one of the best that I can remember, at least in my 4 years here covering high school football in Shelby County. You look at the last week, you look at the season thus far. Obviously, a historic start for Oak Mountain. You've got Thompson sitting undefeated as well. Pelham and Briarwood both 3-1. Calera now 2-2 after their big win. Vincent wins their opener after some crazy storylines early in the season due to COVID-19. The Evangel Lightning sitting at 3-0, and so many different things happening across the board so far this season. And it's only going to go up from here. It's been an exciting start to the season. We're a week away from the midway point. This week, this Friday night, going to be the most exciting slate of games we've had in a long time. We've got 2 undefeated matchups of Class 7A Region 3 teams and so much more. A big rivalry matchup between Helena and Pelham and so on. Going to be a fantastic night of high school football this Friday night. We'll be bringing it to you live through Twitter. We'll have our Facebook Live show before the game, and then all the coverage throughout the night on Twitter and Facebook with stories, photos, and updates from each of the games. I can't wait for it. It's going to be another exciting Friday night of high school football, and we'll see you then.